Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 49. This is the developer's journey into making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development that primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey. Whew. All right.
Nice.
Got
through it.
It was okay. It was okay. Got through it.
Got through it.
But speaking of getting through things, how's everybody's weekend?
I was pretty good. I went down to Baltimore, and
Nice.
It's only tangentially related to app development, but I went down to Baltimore for a show for E. Joseph and the Phantom Heart. Look them up. Good band. Getting a friend of mine, and getting his band back together down there. It was like my birthday trip. But one of the things I did was I wanted to.
Birthday.
Yeah, thank you. I went down to like the harbor area, and we were trying to find a store that was open, but it was closed. So instead, we saw that they have these electric scooters everywhere, for rental.
Mm-hmm.
And so I downloaded the app, and this is where the very tangential app experience comes in, because I went to one of these things, and you're supposed to scan them with their app once you set it up, and with the QR code on top. And I have an iPhone 14 Pro Max, and man, it does not like that camera. I can't get it to focus. It was very awkward. One of them I just typed it in. So there's something about the cameras every year with the Max ones, especially, where some app doesn't get updated right, and so it's a little bit of a hassle. But riding electric scooters, the one electric vehicle I'd be down on buying myself. Very, very fun. Got up to 9 miles an hour on these little things, and if you've seen me, I'm not light. So I was zooming around the harbor area. At one point, this little boy came up to me and he's like, "Yo, how much they cost?" And I'm like, $1.50 plus, I think 55 cents a minute or something. And like, "You buy me one?" I'm like, "No." It's like, "Can I ride with you?" Like, "No, that would be illegal." It was really funny because I did see a kid riding one of these. So someone must have, maybe a parent or something. I don't know. I'd bought them access, but they're not super cheap. And it's like, you got to remember to end the trip and everything.
So what happens if you end the trip? Does that lock itself or?
Okay. So the app technical experience here. Okay. This is pretty cool. These scooters, they're sitting somewhere, hopefully, out of the way. And they were pretty much out of the way. I know they even had in areas where you got like, I think some kind of credit if you parked them in this particular area. Like in the app, you could see on the map, there was like areas, there were designated areas. Like if you park them over here, we'll give you credits. So that helps to corral them. But anyway, you find one of them. And if you try to move them like we did at first, because I was trying to turn them back on for like a 2-person mode, it like will have an alarm that goes off. It'll start beeping really loud until you put it back where it was. Like it's yeah, you don't have to move very far for it starts beeping. So you can't move it without it going to an alarm, and I don't know if it eventually phones home or something. But you go up to it, and then you scan the QR code in the app, and you activate it, and then it turns itself on. And then you can ride around, and when you're done, you park it somewhere appropriately, hit a button to end it, and as part of the process of ending your trip, you have to take a picture of where you parked it, and that I don't know who reviews these things, but that's how it worked for me. And then it locks itself again. So it's just not, you can't do anything with it until you activate it.
So this is clearly somebody who had, for me at least, I have never tried that experience. How does it recharge itself? Is that one of the parts of the credit where you park it in one of those recharging stations, or is there a recharging station? Am I making some weird assumptions?
I didn't see any recharging stations. I think they just pick them up at night. I think the idea of trying to incentivize people to corral them at certain places so they're easier to pick up. But I thought that these things worked by having someone with like a truck go and pick them up to recharge them and then put them back in places. I think that's what they did. Okay. I'm not sure. Maybe they can swap the batteries or something. I don't know. But they're pretty beefy scooters, and they're not really accessible to you as just an average Joe on the street. Like, can't access anything in them. But they have little LCD screens, and they're nice, easy to ride. Smooth motor. I rode a much more powerful version of one of these scooters that a friend of mine purchased. He uses it as his primary transportation here from the suburbs down to Philly and back. Okay, this thing can go to like 30, 40 miles an hour. This thing got. And it has 3 levels, this one that I was riding the other day. And I was like, I think I went up to level 2 and maybe like 70% throttle uphill, and it was scary. Because it just would pull so hard, it would like rip out of your hands if you weren't careful. So these scooters are pretty neat. I think what was cool, not just that you can get these scooters in a variety of sizes and power levels, but I never had the rental experience before, and you know what? It was super, super convenient in a urban setting. Like, it really was.
Mm-hmm.
It costs for 2 of us to ride around for like about 15 minutes. It was like $21. But if you imagine that you're just going from point A to point B, a lot of the distances we were traveling, it would have been less than 15 minutes of travel time if you were just doing it just to get somewhere. And if you're in an area like where we were around the harbor, where there's a lot of them concentrated, and it's like the time of day where, you know, there are people coming on, you can find stuff. You do have to check the power level, obviously, on them. Like, it tells you on the map, and it, you know, what the power levels are.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of on you to know, like, okay, this one is probably, you know, do they have like an estimate of like
range?
Range of where it can go, or how far it can take you? Okay.
They do, but I mean, that's going to depend on the rider, I think. But I didn't have any issue with it. I mean, we rode around. One of them was pretty well charged. One of them was pretty low, but for 15 minutes, it didn't matter. Either way, it was fine. I think, I don't know what happens if they're just dead and if you can even activate them. Probably not. But I only got...
Now, when you've had the app experience, be honest. Be brutally honest with me. Was that written in a cross-platform application environment? Was it a React app? You can tell, you know. I
can't look at it right now because my phone is my camera for this recording, but
sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't really pay too much attention to it. It didn't seem unusually janky, except for the camera. It didn't like, as I said, I didn't like my camera too much. But that is not necessarily, it's because of cross-platform. But I would imagine it probably was a cross-platform thing, because it's on Android too. Yeah. And it has like it's mostly just a map you can kind of, you know, look around on. And I thought it was okay. I thought it could have been maybe a little bit easier to use in places when like ending the trip, it was a little unclear. Like, it wasn't unclear, but it was like we had 2 of us, and I thought that if I ended the trip, it would end it for both of us, since we were tied together, but it didn't. I had to end them individually. Like, the buttons were small. And I was like, I felt like there should have been one giant end button. One more thing that was interesting about it is, and maybe this is just a Baltimore thing, but I had to take a test before it would let me use the scooter. And it gives you
a driver's license test.
Well, no, it gives you these photos, and then it's like and you have to get all 4 or 5 of them right, and it just asks you, like, is this a picture of appropriate, you know, whatever, like parking it appropriately, riding it appropriately. The first time through, I got one wrong.
Interesting.
Somehow I got one wrong because it was like a picture of it riding in the bike lane, and I don't know. Apparently, something about that picture was wrong. And I was like, are you supposed to ride in the bike lane? Whatever. It doesn't matter, because it just asks you to take it again. So you just answer the exact same questions. You just answer them right.
Oh.
And then you can do it. So it's like one of those. It's like a CYA thing, I think. You know? Yeah. I can't imagine. Cause it's so dumb. Because if you got everyone wrong, it looks like it would just ask you the same questions again. And then you get them right the second time. So who cares? So I have no idea.
I'm trying to remember like when I think the water department used to have these tests for people who wanted to get like job interviews. You had to like actually take a multiple choice test at the municipal building. And I just remember people who did well in those tests were actually people who did it like multiple times.
Yeah. Because
they never changed the question. So eventually they could just do it again as many times as they wanted to.
Yeah. And I mean, trying to take this stupid yes/no question test on your phone and like the sun on you, and it's like you're in a rush. They're trying to balance. They probably have some regulation or something, and it's forcing them to do this. I don't know, but it is kind of annoying. But it apparently only happens like once, or if you, I think, if you ride them poorly and they find out or something. I think they may. It says somewhere that they
that would actually kind of be an interesting user experience type of.
Yeah.
It would be nice I assume like at some point maybe if there was like a more nationwide version of this, the UX would be much more interesting, or at least much more like dynamic in terms of like, okay, like maybe you've done some things bad, and they would ask you questions related around that scenario that you do something bad with, right? Like
Yeah,
you
I mean,
leave it in a bad place all the time, or you crash it into too many things. Maybe they ask you specific questions like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm not saying what the scooter company is. There's more than one in Baltimore, but I don't want to say they're not. It wasn't bad. I've only had the one experience with it, and overall it was a very positive one. But I gotta say, from an app design perspective, it was pretty good. Definitely better than I thought it would have been, but it could definitely be maybe tweaked a bit.
Yeah,
I'm just glad it worked. Like it didn't once, other than the camera thing. Once I actually activated the thing, everything was pretty smooth. It does try to send you like notifications when you, for instance, go into an area where you're not allowed to park it. I think that was one of them, where it's like oh, go back to another area. And I don't know if it just wasn't paying attention. I didn't really feel them on my watch, but I saw them on my phone. I don't know if that was the app's fault or just notifications can be weird, but it does try to give you notifications for things. I imagine it would also give you a notification that the battery was low or something like that.
Oh yeah, that
I imagine
sense.
it would. I mean, it's why not? And it's easy. It was easy to download and set up, I think. And then I just use Apple Pay to pay for it, which is nice. In-app Apple Pay, you just pick that. I mean, I think you can do other things, but you can just pick that, and then it's all automatic. And when you're done, charges your card. All good.
I don't know why, but right now, and maybe this is just being in the Apple ecosystem for too long, but like if I'm paying something like a retail, like just recently I just paid like Longhorn steak and they had an Apple Pay option. I was like, oh, that's really nice. Like that was like a pleasant surprise, but also now it's like it spoiled me to like expect that from all the online retail experiences of like providing that service.
Exactly. I always like Apple Pay. It's a lot more secure than like typing your credit card number or something, and it's convenient.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately for me, it's convenience, right? So like I get the 2% and it goes straight into my savings account with the 4.1% interest rate. So it's like all these weird little externalities that make it. Oh, it's up to 5 now. Nice.
No, 4.15. 4.15.
4.15. All right, so that's still 0.05 better than I originally thought. So not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I'll take any little minor percentages. But yeah, I was thinking as you were talking about that, you were walking through your flow. I was thinking how on some level, even there are a lot of apps that we use on somewhat of a semi-daily or semi-weekly basis, right? Of like, oh, this is not bad. So it's gotten surprisingly okay. Like you're not expecting like a Mona Lisa or an Apple Design Award out of some of these apps. Like I think about like the Philadelphia Parking Authority app, where I'm like, okay, like I have my own personal opinions about the parking authority, but their app, not once you get it set up, reasonably okay to work with, and very low friction. So
the everyday government apps we have to deal with have gotten better.
Gotten better.
Yeah, like even the SEPTA app is I remember when they redesigned that thing. It's pretty usable. I mean,
Well, yeah, the key path one that passed. We'll have to talk later about. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, and they added the key card integration, which helps you to manage that terrible awkward system. It's in the app. I mean, like you can log in. You can see your info in the SEPTA app.
Can you register your car? You're like if you buy a new one, because how something.
Oh yeah. Don't know, because I have barely used my key card in like 3 years because of
that's
go downtown all the time. But I look forward to the day where they catch up to like where everybody else was 10 years ago, and we can just use like our phones.
Or credit card.
Credit card. Or
our phones, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's funny you mentioned that, and we'll move on from this in a minute. But so credit cards now, everybody's credit card apparently has like tap to pay. except Apple Card. So every time I give like my Apple Card to somebody, they're always trying to tap to pay now with the thing. And like I've seen it happen multiple times where they're trying to tap and it's not working, and then they realize they have to push it in, the actual physical Apple Card.
That's pretty disappointing.
Yes, because
I wonder if that's the old card, or that's consistent with any new card. Like if I was to get a replacement card, for example, would that work with a replacement card?
Well, it seems
nobody really uses the card. Like I use it as a last resort.
What? One time I tried to use it, it didn't work. So.
The actual card. that sucks. No, but the Apple Card itself is just this titanium thing, and it's intentionally not going to work tap to pay because they want you to use your phone for that Apple Pay for that. But I've noticed since the Apple Card came out that like every time a card gets renewed, like my little credit union is now sending out cards that have tap to pay on them. So it's like everybody's card is like that, to the point where I was at like a brewery that I go to regularly, and every time I give my card to somebody, they like trying to tap it first to pay my bill instead of sticking it. So
I still feel like I'm in the awkward phase of like, do I slide it in or do I tap it?
and our European listeners, if we have any, are like laughing because they've had tap to pay for I don't know how many years, and Japan has had it since like the 1950s or whatever. They're like so far advanced.
I know. But
they were using tap to pay before credit cards existed.
Speaking of, actually, we're going to have an awkward transition because one of the interesting things that seems to be happening with us with regularity now is that just hours before we started this podcast, Apple decided to release another Xcode beta. Is it Beta 7? Are we now in Beta 7?
Indeed, Beta 7. And I love the note that says that visionOS stuff still has issues and should be running Beta 6 if you have this problem.
Oh, is that so? Okay, so ignore this one for Vision. So don't download this if you're doing visionOS.
For Swift Data. It said Swift Data models don't build with visionOS SDK in Beta 7. Continue using Beta 6. And which is like similar to the issue they've had in every beta where they're like, Swift Data doesn't work with visionOS correctly, or observable doesn't work. Use the older beta. And now we're up to Beta 6. Is the one that they want you to use.
I mean, is it fair to say a lot of that is due to the weirdness of, not the weirdness, maybe I should, the newness of the macros? Because
I'm sure
a lot of it feels like it's macro related.
There's a lot of weirdness with the observable stuff this year, like with this new Swift Data stuff.
Supposedly they fixed the scene manifest file, so you can actually have a immersive space as your default when you launch your app. Supposedly, it says it says it's fixed. I haven't tried it yet.
We actually had that problem. That's cool.
Well, that's an interesting point, right?
Because I might need to do that.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of the examples start off with a window and then they press a button.
Right. Well, because it was broken before, there was like no way to do it. It didn't work. Like we talked about it last time. I tried to do that and it was like it just refused to work.
Because I think for the photo editing experimentation, I think that's what I need to do if I want to get a custom layout of windows. I might need to be in like more of an immersive view. I'm not sure. Because I wanted, as I told you before, I want things like laid out for a workflow between scenes.
I mean, I was actually, I was thinking, I follow some Japanese iOS developers on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, but now known as X. X.
Follow me on X.
Originally, it was Yasuhito Nagamoto. He did a lot of work of just a lot of experimental work around ARKit and Reality Kit. Like he kind of started off with like Scene Kit and a lot of AR specific work, and he would do a lot of experiments around like immersive spaces in AR. So we had like making virtual trains. What do you call those miniature trains? Where you would create like a little mini map and you put it in 3D space. And that's
cool.
Kind of got to know him, and then he did a lot of NASA related kind of like simulation style stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started getting into a lot of visionOS work. Some of his more recent stuff was like trying to just experiment of whether you can do like I think it's stable diffusion, but basically their image generation API. Is it stable diffusion? It's stable diffusion, right?
Maybe.
Well, basically, it's just a window
Yeah.
app. All it is just a glorified window app, and all he's doing is really just saying, okay, can I generate something in stable diffusion inside visionOS? So the fundamental technical question is whether he could do it inside of visionOS.
Does it work?
Seems like, well, at least it looks like it works. I didn't really deep dive into the code, but he puts a lot of his stuff out on GitHub. So the beauty is that we can sort of inspect a lot of the work there. Him and another person that he sort of linked, he sort of had I guess he sort of linked to, or I think he retweeted somebody, Hattori Satoshi, another person who actually has a great GitHub repo called visionOS 30 days. It's kind of like a 30-day challenge, so to speak. And I thought that was a really good, like, he starts off with a very basic, like, hello world, and sort of just kind of builds up each one for each day. And then he's, good.
Are they separate projects, or is he building on the same project every day with different, like,
separate projects?
Yeah. I was thinking, you showed me this, and I was thinking of doing the same thing, not necessarily 30 days, but just like maybe just have my projects up on a GitHub repo, little tiny experiments, instead of trying to iterate on the same code base. Maybe it'd be easier if I just do specific experiments.
Yeah. So in his case, he had one that I thought was more relevant for you, where he has a grid of images in immersive space, and and it's one thing to just see like a grid of them, right, in one layer, but he actually has it in 3 layers. So he has a grid of images, 3 grids of images, each behind each other from from a z-index point of view. So you kind of, if you can walk through them like one behind the other, it's almost kind of like this weird, like not weird, but he has a sort of like interesting. It's kind of like a great example of like, okay, like maybe we can take these and make these more dynamic, but he's got the framework to get the layout right, or at least get it to like a point where you can just set up a layout of grids of photos. He did it. I think he did a later experiment, or he did a separate experiment where he actually animates those grids of images to like stack or something like that. I don't know if it was him or somebody else that kind of worked off of that example. But yeah, it's beginning to become apparent that there's a good amount of visionOS. People were doing examples of visionOS work in the open, and some of them are even sharing the code. So I think last week we sort of talked about somebody. I think his name was Wimbo. I think I have to check. No, it was that or Tracy Henry. I think Tracy Henry was the original source of this idea of like a camera lock. So he had a 3D character that was locked to your eyes. Your wherever you were looking, that it stayed, the 3D character stayed locked to one space. It wasn't like you sort of like had it inside a 3D space and you can like look away from it. You know, it's one of those things where like from a HUD point of view, when you're trying to like do a HUD, you want to at least have something in front of you to sort of like so you can have like, you know, just very basic dashboard information that you might want. At all times.
I don't remember exactly what the code said, but I remember looking at it and it was pretty straightforward to lock it in. It was way simpler than I thought it might have had to be.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. It was like basically what it said was like, I think the origin, I think it would always like camera something, look at camera something origin device, or some pre-existing property that.
And then I think a little z-axis. You know, distance to make it in front of you instead of like on top of your view. And I worked a little dude followed you wherever you look. It's always there.
I mean, there was also examples of using the portal example. So there was an example of the portal, which I think they technically had in the existing Apple demo somewhere. There's also a lot of work around immersion. I think there's even one like a 3D. I don't know if he has it here, but there is one where there's a video, a 360 video that you can experiment with. And I think, yeah, he has one in like day 24 of an immersive 360 video. So we can actually see how that would work. Whereas an actual video that you could just look 360 around and it's still going, which would be pretty crazy if that what the implication is. There's also an example for drag and drop. So one of the other things is that because drag and drop support is kind of pretty straightforward in Swift UI, it didn't become apparent, but it's pretty straight. It's also pretty straightforward in visionOS. It's not that complicated. And then they also have one where they use a Swift UI shader, where it's kind of like faking the matrix effect. I think that's day 26. It's actually a little bit of cheating. So the shader part of it is not so much the actual characters that go down, because that's actually like a grid of Swift UI text that are lined vertically that just animates in a loop. The effect is actually in when you try to like pixelate that. That's when you have a shader effect overlay on that. One of the other interesting later ones that he seemed to have built, which was actually a day right after, and it's much more interesting to me as an extension of what we're trying to do, is the Swift UI view in immersive space.
Okay.
So before there, it's an either or proposition, right? Like you would have Swift UI windows to kind of do that, kind of like you have like a desktop experience where you're having like a bunch of windows and they're all in like Swift UI. But if you wanted to do something more like immersive, then you go into the immersion space and everything's like a 3D model. Whereas in this case, it's like saying, yeah, well, you can still bring in your Swift UI views in immersive space and do much more immersive interactions. Maybe I'm missing something there, but I thought that I didn't realize that was a possibility, right? Of like, then you could use something like Swift UI charts.
I mean,
or Swift UI, or like placing stuff in specific locations in a way that makes sense to this, and using Swift UI to drive the data or the interactions in immersive space. I'm not entirely sure if it's still only like a read only kind of thing, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because I would want to be able to set up like some immersive set of windows or graphs or things positioned specifically, and I want and recreating that positioning every time I go in. That'd be kind of a combination maybe of this immersive space of windows and being able to do the HUD thing where you can kind of lock it into place. I don't know. So because I imagine there's a category of apps where you might want to go into like work mode on them and have it all set up exactly as you want your workspace to be for whatever you're doing. And sometimes maybe you want to do that in the one app because the workflow is intense enough for that versus having multiple windows in a shared space. Or maybe you want to go. You can't really go back and forth in an immersive space, but you know, I could see, like I said before, like my Lightroom thing. When I'm doing the Lightroom stuff, I'm not usually using other apps, although sometimes I am for like, you know, AI assisted noise reduction or something. But for the most part, I'm just in the one application workflow. So I want to set up I like to set up like very specific kind of environment. And then I think it'd be good for like 3D modeling too. Something like that where you can have data and then you can have like the result of it's floating there. I know you can kind of do it. You can do it in the regular mode too, right?
That would be kind of fascinating, right?
I want to be able to grab the model. I want to be able to recreate Iron Man, the first Iron Man, or one of the Iron Man movies where he's like creating stuff with little 3D holograms he's somehow manipulating with his hands.
I mean, one of the things that I think is interesting that's at the moment kind of emitted, but I assume long-term Apple will provide some support for, is this idea of like taking our gesture recognitions and like, it's one thing to be able to like map the sort of traditional interactions, whether it be, you know, tap to pinch to tap, which is fundamentally is tap,
select.
And then pinch and then drag is like the the drag select, right? And
Yeah.
then like there are like more one-to-ones to whatever's pre-existing in iOS tap gestures. Whereas
So the
I think
I was
I
saying
think
the
the vision,
grandmoms of the world have been training for this product their whole lives, pinching the
yes,
cheeks,
yes,
you know, of the
yes,
grandchildren.
pinch, 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 or like
Pinch,
if you
pinch.
come from
Or
like
what's that Canadian? Wasn't that Canadian comedy troupe with like
Boys from
the
the Hall, is it
is it
boys? Yeah, it's like
was
I'm
it
squishing your
squishing
I'm
your
squishing your
head,
head.
squishing your head.
Oh, dude, there is a beautifully bad app idea.
Yes,
If you had a
yes.
squish, I'm squishing your head, squishing your
Oh
head.
man, how would that even
You just
work?
pinch, you pinch. Well, technically that's a tap gesture. Well, okay, so this is where I'm getting at. The thing about the hand gestures, it's all just sort of like at the moment the way Apple had done that with the heart, their like heart beam app was like much more about like saying this finger, this your index finger, it can read your hand gestures and kind of read all the indexes, so it knows which one's your index finger versus your middle finger, etc. But you have to do all the interpretation of like where each index is and the relations to each other, so you can like say, oh, if this, you make it kind of guesswork of like if this thumb is next to that thumb and this finger is next to that finger in this sort of gesture, then maybe it's a heart shape. It's a heart shape. That's close enough to being a heart shaped beam. So Apple doesn't make any real easy way, or at least from an API standpoint, right? Of just like just saying this is the person pointing with his left hand, right? Or this is a person. The hand is it's what's the term?
It's a fully articulated.
Yeah,
like an action figure. Many
right,
levels of articulation.
Right, they can read the points of where they are in space, but they can't tell you distinctly what they're doing at that any given moment. So, like, if my hands are fisted versus an open palm, right, or if it's in what rotation is it, how far? Like, there's no real easy APIs at the moment just yet. I assume third parties will kind of cover this almost at the beginning, where you can do like sort of like a simple hand gesture recognition to be like, okay, this hand is, based on what we're seeing, this hand is doing a pointy finger thing at this distance and this sort of like quaternion kind of position, and then we can kind of just say, oh, if it's doing this, fire a beam from the point of the index finger, right? Like that would be great if somebody will build an API just for that, and then maybe they have already
a force lightning API.
Yeah, but gets back to the point of like pinching, right? Like it would be great to just see the position of where I pinch, right? Maybe this already kind of technically exists.
We need a slightly higher level API with some pre-existing,
like
hand
presets.
gestures, presets.
Yeah. Some basic presets that would help me understand where it is. And what's hilarious is like maybe this is actually useful from a got the term, but hand signals. What's for the
sign language?
Sign language. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like just even that alone, if you were to say, okay, have some kind of API that can identify if I do sign language, what does that translate into? But also that is like kind of like the core. That's the engine that helps identify what your hand is doing, right?
So, cool. Wait, how often? Wait, can you do real time recognition of your hand movements? Is it like checking per frame or however many frames, whatever?
I mean, ish.
I don't know, Aaron, I mean, like how fast can it work? I mean, because
it has to work pretty fast.
It should be possible to do sign language recognition. I mean, you can already do it with apps with your phone camera, right? Aren't there some? I know there was at least a library that existed. I thought to do that kind of thing. Maybe I'm misremembering, but you've got to be able to recognize sign language. It's got to be something that can be recognizable.
I want to say yes, and I'd be almost very shocked and slightly disappointed if Apple if Vision Pro comes out and Apple doesn't have that in their accessibility feature. I would be surprised. Honestly,
we could just be missing it because we don't really look enough into the accessibility section, which has a lot of really cool features. Actually,
They
very,
do.
very impressive.
They do.
But yeah, that would be also. I mean, this is where the spatial computing, or like wearing something in front of your eyes, can really come in handy. Is when for language translation like that. That could open up a whole new world.
It's iOS 17 that allows, and this is more of an accessibility feature than it is like it's something that they're planning to unlock for the general public. But it would be able to learn your voice.
Oh yeah.
So that it would be able to speak it if you like send somebody like a text message and maybe you want to do it for auditory reasons, it would do it in your voice. Which I thought, oh, that's interesting that they added that, and they kept it as an accessibility feature, but that almost implies like there are opportunities, particularly in say the spatial world, where maybe you can integrate that somehow.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to mimic a voice, I mean that's already doable with some websites right now. Just get some recordings and you can get a very realistic sounding version of us.
I mean, this again is Apple sort of like, when people complain or say, oh, Apple, failed for whatever reason because they aren't using any generative AI stuff. And I was like, they're just not. Yeah, it's just not blatant about it.
Yeah, I mean they probably are. They probably are using it. I mean, we know they are working on their own stuff, but they probably already applied a lot of those techniques to features. They just don't make a big deal about it, as you said.
Yeah, I mean they have already object detections in Photos app. Siri, to a certain extent, is the precursor in a lot of ways.
That's when we'll know that they have when they have a large language model working in production. That's when you'll know, because Siri will suddenly become a lot more fluent to deal with, sort of. I don't know.
It'll be more useful.
Maybe, although it's Apple and they're serious about control, and the problem with and we're not going to go into LLM discussion too much today, but the problem with it is it seems virtually impossible to fully control the output of those things. And everybody in the world would be trying to hack Siri once they knew that it was backed by an LLM, trying to get it to say weird things. So we'll see what happens with that. But we can only hope that Siri someday becomes, useful beyond setting timers that works like 75% of the time.
I think anecdotally speaking, I can only speak to the fact that I will rely on Siri for mostly menial tasks, as in setting timers or maybe reminders or stuff like that.
It's pretty bad at recognizing my voice a lot of the times, like enough that it's unreliable or I have to repeat myself, and so I'm not going to give it anything complicated to do.
Right. Well, who knows? Maybe they fix it in 17.
No, I don't think so. I think it's too soon. 18 maybe.
18.
They're all focused on visionOS. They got to get the visionOS working, and Swift data. They got to fix that too. Sure. That's been problematic.
One thing I did find out. I think I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it was actually through Yasuhito's project for the climate spiral thing. But there's web views in. I can't be surprised.
There are web views in visionOS.
There's web views in visionOS.
Well, I mean, there is, because
time to give up.
You got to have some kind of web view. I mean, you got Safari's in there, and also, I mean, if you need to do things like web authentication, that has to go through like a specialized web view.
Oh, I know.
It's iOS, man. It's basically, or iPad OS is basically what it is, right?
I know.
Like a version of that with a lot of extra stuff in there.
Yeah.
How else are they going to put the hideous ads everywhere?
Oh yeah, that's our future.
Look, we already have a dystopian future. Why are you making this?
You go into an immersive space, and that immersive space is full of ads.
Yes, just full of ads. It's like cable all over again.
Yeah.
Do you imagine?
Oh my god! So you're watching Hulu in the immersion mode, and it has to stop for or YouTube has to stop for a mid-roll VR ad.
All right.
No, it's not going to be VR. It's just going to be like a static, the like ugliest, worst possible PNG. That's all blurry and hideous.
No.
Be white background
Yeah, you're trying to watch a
That's
video
right.
that like blown up to the size of a building or something in your virtual space, and then the ad is like a 240p video clip, and it's just blown up to the size of a building. You
Yep.
don't know what you're looking at.
Exactly.
You know what's happening.
You didn't mention a horrible idea, Aaron, and I almost now I hate you because it's going to happen. Is you know how like in immerser mode, I don't know if it's considered progressive mode, but there is a way to create a wallpaper, like you said, right, in the background. So you have your video in the foreground that you're watching, and then if you want to feel like you're in a beach while you're watching this thing, you can have like a panorama in the background. So could you imagine, right? Like if you're Hulu, why wouldn't you place, a casino ad in the background?
Well, they do it in video games, or they put like background assets that are actually ads, like on billboards or certain like
but
buildings.
They're kind of yes, but they're in the game, right? They're meant to be sort of like blend in that experience of they're part of that world. So like if Pepsi's in a billboard in that game, I'm not going to get mad about it because that's in real life, right?
Yeah.
So like if they were stupid enough to pay money for that, sure, fine, knock yourself out. But like now this thing is like competing with like, okay, I'm watching a video and then I have a Coke ad in the background.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like a Coke ad in the
stretched out
background.
PNG. Yeah. That's a stretched out PNG.
Your immersive viewing space of like the desert or something is just going to happen to have a giant billboard for Pepsi. I mean, because you're on the ad tier, you have to pay more if you want to get rid of the ads. Look, this is a bad app idea that we're giving away here to Hulu.
This is the sad part. This is a brilliant app idea.
It is. It's going to be made.
It is horrible. That with horrible dark, like not. I don't even know if you call it a dark pattern, but it's like
it can be done poorly or it can be done well. Advertising is useful and has its place in the world, and it's going to be done. They're going to do ad if they can get away with it. They're going to put ads.
Any blank surface you look at is going to have an ad on it.
That's the worst outcome. That's the dystopic version.
Just give me, I don't even mind. I don't
mind.
Ads
locked to your viewport ports. You can never not see it.
Listen, just give me long man ads all day, and that's fine. Like you give me those type of ads that actually have a story behind it. I don't know if you've seen Long Man.
No, I've not. Long Man. Ad. That's an ad called Long Man.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, that's that. If you type in Long Man in YouTube, you'll find it, and the whole series is phenomenal. I won't give anything away. It's not worth, but it's a relatively short like series. That progresses and gets progressively more absurd.
Nice.
But it's brilliant. Like, just give me that. You pay so much money on these ad agencies, and they come up with the worst, dumbest ideas. Or the laziest.
Look, everything goes back to trying to recreate the dream of Second Life, where every one of these, whether it's like this Second Life or whether it's like Roblox or something, like every one of these immersive types of experiences, they try to figure out a way of getting the ads to be more organic, in the environment or in your face in a way that seems natural. So we'll see how it turns out for visionOS. I wonder though about you have to go through app review for this stuff. Is app review gonna be like, yeah, you can't be too obnoxious? I mean, but then whose like standard is applied with that kind of thing?
I mean, here's the thing that I think, like, Aaron, this would be interesting from an implementation standpoint, because we'd have to kind of look at this, and I'm sure we will, given our particular work that we do. In fact, this is the kind of thing you should propose as an idea, just to be that, just so we can get a device in our grumpy little hands, because anything that revolves around money, right? Like, product owner is going to be like, hey, okay, yeah, I'm on board.
It's like the background billboard, like every second it just gets like a little bit closer to you. It's a little bit bigger. So just kind of creeps up on you.
I mean, we could also have it so like Coke cans just start like pouring down the side. It's just like as you
Well,
watch
see,
the movie.
you're talking about ideas that like take effort. I'm talking about ones that don't.
Oh, yeah.
It's just an animated GIF, low res. It just keeps jankily moving towards your viewport until it's right in your face, and you have to tap something physically with your finger.
Those are the ideas that are likely to happen. The ones that are like immersive and make sense for your experience, nobody's going to do them because they take too much effort.
So we need to repurpose ads, right? So let's say they're static ads, right? Let's
pick the lowest common denominator ad, which is like just a static image.
It'll be a horrible poster, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say like take your worst billboard poster and just stack that in the back. And let's say it's a Hulu ad, and the Hulu ad's like, okay, this is for our local sponsor, right? And so the local sponsor has whatever they're just gonna put the crappy billboard art and just stretch it out to like the full screen panorama view while you're watching the local ad in the insert ads. So it's like Bob Sawyer thing.
So basically what you're describing is that watching streaming services in immersive mode will be like going to your local movie theater where they have like the ads from the business down the street that's not quite formatted right, coming up on your screen. It'll be more annoying because it won't be just like before the movie. It'll be like in the middle of the show as a commercial break.
Yeah, it'll be worse because you can't escape it.
You can't even look away because they can just attach it right to your viewport.
They have a 360 view, right?
Oh my god, you can't not see the ad. Oh, I think that was actually a plot in Dark Mirror or something, man.
You try to look away, and it's like it's right. They make sure like it's stretched out, and then it repeats. It repeats itself. So it's like a donut, like an insert, like inverse donut.
Wait, I got even better. I got even better. You have to look at it for a certain amount of time, or the movie will stop.
Oh,
like you can't look away. You have to look at it. Just that's why you can't track eyes.
I don't know. Here's the hilarious part. Let's say it blocks.
It blocks a view, and it's like an icon that you can highlight by looking at. So
it's a little X icon, right? And it's like in the lower like left, and it only comes up after 5 seconds, right? So after 5 seconds, then the X icon, and then you have to do a long focus?
Just stare.
Just stare for long enough for like 5 seconds, and then it'll go away.
I mean, someone's gonna try that, I bet, and it'll probably get through app review because lots of terrible things get through app review. Oh man!
It's most likely going to be one of those like ad network SDK products, right? So
yeah, probably
you wouldn't be able to you wouldn't be able to really like verify that from your Apple's point of view because okay, fine, right? It's an SDK, but I can imagine. Right, like the ad networks are just licking their chops, like, "Ooh, yeah,
man, yeah." I mean, on the other,
you get. Yeah, I'm just wondering how long is it going to take to get buried in a literal avalanche of ads?
Literal avalanche, it's true. And you can't block them because you can't block them like you can in like a web browser because we're talking about native apps here. Not so easy to block them.
I mean, I know like Apple, I don't know, I'm just wondering if Apple or any of even the ad networks actually disapprove of this idea of like trying to make a game out of ads. Like I used to want to do something where like there was one developer that made a web page that's just nothing but ads, nothing but banner ads.
I think I remember this.
Like do it in all different shapes. I was like, oh, that's so brilliant, right? And one of the other ones that I wanted to do, you and I talked about this bad app idea a long time ago. Where you can do like the Tinder version of ads. So you swipe left or swipe right. It's like, oh, this ad sucks. Swipe left. Like it would actually be like a reasonable app to build because it's like, look, I am actively participating in validating whether your ad is great or not.
Yeah, and
I could say nope. All right, I like this one, right? And then they would get that, whatever. We get a little sense here. They would get their ad engagement, blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
You can even do categories. Give me all your political ads.
Yeah, oh my god. To end the streaming ads bad app idea on a positive note, though, despite the fact that Aaron is probably correct that no one will do this, if you wanted to make good ads, you have a whole new way of doing so in an immersive environment where I could, see an ad that could come up for something I'm actually interested in. Like maybe I want to buy a new wallet. And actually, I follow a YouTube channel that reviews wallets. It's surprisingly entertaining. And anyway, like, what if a wallet comes up? I'm like, I'm in the market for a wallet. And I could get a 3D model of the wallet. I can kind of look at it from all angles and manipulate and open it up and, like, see if how many cards does that thing actually fit? Like, you could do all kinds of stuff with a much more advanced kind of ad. And I think that some people might actually try that. But, it depends on the product or whatever. But probably not very often, because most will just be animated GIFs.
There'll be a few of those, but they're going to be buried under the
avalanche, the literal file. You hope the gesture recognizer for swiping away things works. You can get them out of your face.
I mean, it would be hilarious if, like, the biggest, like, entries of, because I can totally see the initial entries of, like, the ones who want to come in this space cater to a specific group of people who understand, like, this is like a big infinite window-ish type. No, I can't say infinite, but, like, your screen real estate dramatically increases. I will be curious to see if that state gets saved, very similar to, like, a Mac OS. So you're always going to have those windows in certain places unless you get rid of them. So if I close visionOS and I put it back on, am I still going to have the windows in the same positions at the same time? If so, that actually is quite compelling, because now I have a workspace that I can always depend on to do a lot of multitasking and a lot of sort of, I view it as like a pretty good or a pretty interesting way to multitask in a sort of style that is kind of caters to, like, the day trader types, or people who need a lot of windows at once, or they use a lot of window interactions. But I think from that standpoint, it would be interesting to see it, like, because I don't think a lot of app developers are really comfortable in sort of the volume and then also the immersive space section yet. I think, again, like, the first phase of apps that come in are going to be, like, still stuck in that 2D window pane, and maybe over time they'll get more comfortable to branch out. But I think the first version will be a lot of sort of, like, very tippy-toey kind of way, much more than I think is you would expect. There's, like, people who would, like, take it to the farthest edge. Like, I think, like, the people that we talked about before with Hattori and Yasuhito, I think, and people like them, I think those will probably push the boundaries, but they kind of are like the trailblazers of what is possible. And I think they're just scratching the surface, to be honest. Like, there's stuff out there that I've been seeing that's just been like, oh, this is going to be wild. The people who get it will really, like, push this to some pretty absurd lengths. Building a product around that's the part that's going to be challenging.
Yeah, I think developer tools is a good product idea at this stage. If you're one of the pioneers of the impressive stuff, you build the higher level libraries, might be able to sell them.
I mean, even if you did something as simple as, like, a glorified text editor, right, that caters to that space somehow. Maybe I'm trying to think, like, where you would create, like, previews of the code, or maybe what you can do is, like, code the work and then have ways to, like, update, like, jobs that you can, like, send off to someplace, have the dashboard sort of update you as you go, and you kind of go about your business.
We haven't really talked too much about how are the cross-platform tooling going to handle this new visionOS world, and they're going to need to build maybe their own tools to help you to build apps that work in this. efficiently. I don't know. Maybe they can.
Are you referring to like the Flutters and React
like
Natives
Flutter or
mode,
something like that? Yeah, or React. I mean,
I think
I mean, right now
already...
you could build that stuff now in like outside of Xcode, right?
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
so
Oh,
you
good
should be
point.
able to do that
Yeah.
in visionOS to a point, but they're going to need to port their tools. So that's another space if you're
Oh, interesting.
looking
I know
for,
that
for products to build.
there is a way that Flutter, there's a pathway for Flutter and I believe React to build visionOS apps. I at least remember seeing that somewhere, but I don't.
Well, I'm just
I
saying,
don't
like,
know where that's at.
I'm saying they have an opportunity here to define new developer experiences because they're mostly you're building it like in like JavaScript or something. You're building it in languages where you can have the code editor and you can have the visualization happening in visionOS. So you can do things that maybe are not done with the way Xcode works. Like you could try out some new ideas about how to visualize and do your development loops. I mean, it'd be cool. It might be cool.
Could you imagine a visionOS version of Xcode?
like you in visionOS?
I mean, we do already struggle with screen real estate with Xcode in general.
I mean, what right now? I mean, what I thought you'd be able to do is just do it in visionOS as like a expansion of your Mac window.
True. Yeah, you could.
But I'm saying beyond that, like some ways of developing apps, or at least of certain kinds, where you're taking advantage of the fact that you're in an immersive 3D environment. And I don't know exactly what that would entail, and maybe it only applies to certain types of development efforts, but I think an obvious one is anything to do with 3D asset work or anything to do with game design seems like a great one where you want the tools to be more integrated into that space, and that's something I think even Apple's probably thought about. And just more than just a window is what I'm saying. More than just like a window, more like I want to go through my level in actual first person, or something like that. So you can, and I want to experience it.
That's not a bad idea.
Or I want to like design. I don't know. Or I want to get like different views. I don't know. Some of this stuff might be easier to do in a fully immersive world versus on a screen with 3-dimensional.
Especially feel like if I want to place certain things in certain positions, or if I want to go through one of the things that you can say, and we'll probably have to wrap up soon, but one of the things that I find frustrating but might work better in visionOS is placing 3D assets in space and doing it perfectly, right? It's like you do a lot of this like like dragging the component, the 3D assets, and you're like quite sure it's there, but like you can't tell until you rotate the camera to be like, oh, it's the Z index is off and it's like too far into the wall or something. So you have to tweak it there. So like I think that's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, I agree. Like managing 3D assets and then saving that and then bring that back into the.
I mean, it could be
project.
It could just be so much easier to be like, just put me in the middle in this part of the level. Let me stand here and let me give me the perspective of the character in the game, and then let me just look around, and I could see how things will look, and I could see, oh well, that needs to be moved a little bit, and then I can just like reach out maybe and have a gesture recognizer that says, oh, you're pointing at that tree. Here you go, and then you just move it a little bit to the left, or that kind of thing. It could make for a much more hands-on like level design is one idea. It could be fun.
You're making too much sense.
I know we can't. It's supposed to be bad app ideas only on the show.
What? Why do we keep doing this? I swear, we just keep coming up with. We come up with good ideas. I mean, when I say good ideas, I don't mean like the ad is honestly a good idea, but it's probably a money-making idea.
True. I mean, we're just playing around with ideas right now because not much else we can do. With idea.
That's true. But that's all we have for today. You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is. And share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. Since, again, I am super lazy and it's super summer, I want to give a shout out to our good friend, ClipDish. It's getclipdish.com. ClipDish is a wonderful app for the iOS and iPadOS platform. You can it allows you to collect recipes and organize your recipes. And in a very unique way where it actually allows you to use Safari as an extension to clip a recipe from a website, remove all the ads and all the externalities, and just save all the specific contents of that recipes, out of that website's recipe or web page's recipes, and save it for yourself for prosperity reasons.
Yep. Make it easier for you to follow along when you're cooking, too, because
yep,
yeah. So very useful app, and do check it out. It is our one more thing today.
One more thing, yes. Made with love in Bucks County, PA.
Nice. I go to Bucks County regularly. It's a nice county.
Yeah, it's a very nice county. Until next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always.
Follow me on X.